Hey, what's up, everyone? Tara Talmadge alongside Mike Irwin, our senior analyst, and it is time for another edition of Ask Mike. And as always, we're going to start things off with a COVID-19 update. Still some games being canceled because of this.
Yeah, I haven't decided, but I'm looking forward to the day when we don't do a COVID update.
That would be nice.
I don't know when that's going to be, but I hate these things, and I hate talking about COVID. Okay, everybody knows this. We had our worst week as far as the SEC is concerned. Last week we had 4 games canceled, 3 games played, and now we've already had a cancellation as of this morning. I guess Texas A&M still has COVID issues, and I'm assuming, although they didn't get specific in the announcement, that they don't have that 53-man roster thing they need in order to play in a game, or maybe they don't have a quarterback or whatever they don't have. I guess their game with Ole Miss has been postponed. I don't know how they keep postponing these games. That's going to take some creative rescheduling. It does bring to mind, and I was thinking about this, how lucky Arkansas is. And it may not be luck. I mean, because we know that they have not had anywhere close to a COVID situation where they couldn't play all year long. So that, to me, speaks to the way they've handled it, the way the coaches have dealt with it, the way the athletes have taken it seriously. You compare that to LSU, which continues to have problems off and on. So I said a long time ago that COVID would impact the season in terms of there would be coaches and athletes within teams that would handle it better than others. And I think Arkansas is one of those teams that has handled this thing very well. So hopefully, we haven't received any word that it's canceled, and hopefully the LSU game will not be canceled. As of right now, it's still listed on the schedule as an SEC network game at 11 o'clock, and we'll assume that's going to happen. We've gotten game notes from the athletic department. They wouldn't do that if they weren't going to play, but that still doesn't mean there couldn't be an announcement later in the week or even sometime today. But as of when we started this show, Arkansas is scheduled to play that game. Now, there's good news with regard to Sam Pittman. Just a couple of hours ago in a Zoom, he said he has been cleared to come back as of Wednesday. He said be in the office. I assume that also means that he can coach. I guess he still has to undergo a heart scan, and that hasn't been done, and that's done to all athletes and all coaches with these teams coming off of a testing positive for COVID. So that's pretty standard, but he's got to get that done. I would doubt that he would have any problems because he never had any major symptoms. He said the only problem he had was for 3 or 4 days. He had a fatigue and a sore back. He said the soreness started down around his kidneys and slowly moved up to the upper part of his back, but he said he's fine now. So that's all good news, and I was really thinking about that before he got that announcement, that if he didn't get cleared, this would be 2 games in a row. And I'm one of those people. Some people think that it didn't affect the game. I think it did. So I'm glad that he's back. So we have that. Now, basketball. We played the red-white game last week. There were 2,000 students in Bud Walton Arena. It looked empty.
It did look empty.
There's going to be 4,000 for the Wednesday game with Mississippi Valley State. I think that's the Wednesday game. Starts the season. So basketball season is just around the corner. There will be 4,000 fans allowed for that game. I've been watching social media, and a lot of these fans haven't gotten any sort of indication. Well, that's the problem. If you've got 14,000 people with season tickets, all of you can't get season tickets. So they will start with a selected number and say, you can do this, and then it'll move to others. So it may be a while before you get told which games you can buy tickets for. But I wouldn't be too worried if you don't get the tickets to some of these early games. It's much better to go to the SEC games anyway. But 4,000 available for the basketball games until further notice. And then the NCAA came out with an announcement earlier this morning, and they are going to play the entire. And I want to see how this works.
It's going to be really interesting.
The entire NCAA basketball tournament, first, it'd be what, 65, 66 teams.
It's a lot.
You're going to play all of those games in Indianapolis. Now, I don't know how you do that. Maybe what they will do in the first round when you've got all those games is they'll start on Monday and just play 4 games every day all the way through the week. And that's about the only way you could do it. You can't do it on the traditional Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. That's not enough. How those teams are all going to work out,
I have no
I guess they're going to be gyms all over the Indianapolis area and we're working out in high school gyms. They do have Butler University right there in Indianapolis, and that's a 14,000-seat arena. So they might play some of their games in their big basketball arena, some over at Butler University at Hinkle Fieldhouse. And I don't know of another big arena. There's one down in Bloomington. Whether they would include that in the Indiana in that, I don't know. The details are still being worked out. But that's pretty much the COVID update as far as I know. Kind of covers a little bit of football and a little bit of basketball.
All right, let's get to our questions this week. We're going to start things off with a question from Peak Hog, who wants to know if Commissioner Sankey can penalize and fine an SEC coach over proper mask attire on the sideline or fine fans for rushing the field. Why can't he fine a university for allowing 2,000 plus cadets to stand shoulder to shoulder for an entire game?
Yeah, this is another guy angry at A&M handling this thing. And I want to emphasize what I've already said, which is in the athletic department here at Arkansas made this clear to me that the SEC does not determine how many fans that get into a stadium. That's a state-by-state decision with their own COVID protocols. So obviously down in Texas, they're not too worried about what A&M is doing. It is interesting, though. First of all, I don't know of any situation where fans have rushed the field. If I missed something, and I missed it. But I don't know. In this conference, I don't know that that's happened. If it did, they would not fine the fans. There's no history of that. You fine the school. And there is a rule, and it has been in place for several years for fining fans or fining a school if they allow fans to rush the field in football or basketball. And it was in place for reasons that have nothing to do with COVID. It was safety issues, people getting knocked around, broken legs or whatever. But it would take on added importance during this COVID pandemic because it would once again cause a school to have to be fined if you don't control your fans and allow them to go out on the field. But again, I don't know that that's happened. And again, the A&M thing, you're going to have to get over it because that's not controlled by the SEC. That is a state of Texas situation that is allowing that many. Now, whether or not the SEC could come in and say, you got to social distance those guys and again, penalize the school if they don't do it, that's possible. Clearly, they haven't done it or thought that it was a problem. Here's what I find interesting. I want to get your reaction to this. When you watch these games, and I watch a lot of them, does Arkansas not look like it's perfect?
It does.
They've got everybody just perfectly. It's just like
everyone is very well.
It's just like it's all perfectly spaced out by a plan. And then you watch some of these other games, and they've got gobs of fans here and gobs over there.
I mean, the only time that it didn't look like that for Arkansas was when they won the last game, and the student section kind of all went down towards the field. But that's the only example. And honestly, I think it has to do a lot with, like you mentioned, the states and stuff and how they're doing. Because I've gone to a couple of these games now, you know, going to the Gainesville game, going to Mississippi State, and they're kind of lax in Florida. Very lax. So it's a definitely a different environment.
How about the
here
mask?
In Northwest
were there a lot
Arkansas.
of people masking in Florida?
No. Not very many at all, if like really anywhere.
And they've got COVID issues down there.
So interesting subject right there. But let's move on to our next question. Swine American asks, what are some of the reasons that Sam Pittman and his staff have been more effective in putting the Razorback program on a positive path much sooner as opposed to a Scott Frost at Nebraska or even a Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee?
You know, that this would just be a theory, but I believe that one of the reasons this turnaround has happened so quickly is because you've got players buying in quicker. If players believe in a coach, and especially if there's a guy like Sam Pittman, they not only believe him, they just love the guy. They're gonna do the things they have to do and get chewed out and not let it affect them and not get depressed, and even when they lose a game, bounce back. That's what we've seen from this team. This is what's really been remarkable about this team is it's been a series of bounce backs. You know, you have that Georgia game where they got pounded pretty good, but even in that game they came back late. Then they came back and won a game. Then they got rooked out of the Auburn win, but they didn't get too depressed, you know. And you can take a look at this Florida game. They kept coming back. So it might have looked bad at the end, but there was never any quit or give up. So I just think it's got a lot to do. Well, I think there are good coaches on this
Yeah.
staff that know how to coach, and I think that's the other thing. These players believe in the knowledge of the coaches. Okay, if we do what they ask us to do, we'll be successful.
Yeah.
That's in direct contrast to what we saw. Honestly, I think the last 4 years, I don't think it was just Chad Morris. I think the last 2 years of Brett Bielema, there was a lot of kind of players tuning out coaches.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. You've just got guys buying into, okay, I got a good position coach, I know it, and I'm just going to keep doing what he asked me to do.
Not to mention, they're just tired of losing.
No,
flat
absolutely.
out. They're ready
all
to turn
are.
that around.
That's what's been good about this year.
All right, our next question comes from the Bionic Pig, who wants to know, choose one player in their prime to add to this current team. Who would you pick on that list? You got Joe Adams, Matt Jones, Sean Andrews, DJ Williams, and Darren McFadden to pick from.
I'm going to go with Joe Adams because I've said all along that Felipe Franks needs more targets.
Yeah.
And that was before Davion Warren got hurt.
Right.
Now he's out. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But, yeah, I'd go with Joe Adams just to give yourself an extra explosive receiver. But then, you know, Traylon Burks is good at a lot of things, and he's really good at catching punts, but he hasn't done anything in terms of run backs. He mostly just fair catches. And believe me, Joe Adams didn't do that. Joe Adams was a great punt returner, the best I've seen at this school.
Yeah.
So I'm making DJ Williams
I was about to say, you're not going to pick our guy?
I just got to blow him off. We got two good tight ends.
Yeah.
You need a punt returner, and you need another receiver.
All right, our next one is from Pork Soda this week, who wants to know, what effect did Sam Pittman missing the Florida game have on the outcome of that game?
Well, Barry Odom talked about that, and he said that where Pittman did a good job was he said he organized how he handled practice. And he was able to talk to the players in a Zoom before practice. He was able to watch the practice from several angles, then talk to them later about what he'd seen. He was able to participate in the staff meetings because of that. So he had all that worked out. The one thing you can't do is you can't be there.
Right.
So he couldn't participate via Zoom in coaching the game.
Yeah.
So that's the part that I think where there was a problem. And I'm not criticizing Barry Odom. I think what happened was he got put into a double role. I saw this happen for a season when Jack Crow was fired in '92, and Joe Kynes, the defensive coordinator, became the interim head coach. He talked about at the end of the season how exhausting it was to try to be the head coach and still be the defensive coordinator, and it affected the defense that year. Well, this is only thankfully for one game because Sam Pittman was back. But I think part of the problem, not all of it, but part of the problem in that game with Florida scoring all those points was you had a distracted defensive coordinator that had a lot of other duties. So I think that's where the effect was. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you could go down and play a football game like that and not be affected by not having your head coach there, what would it say about your head coach?
Right.
Yeah, we don't need this guy.
Him. Yeah.
You could play a game last year with Chad Morris not being there, and you might actually be better. In fact, we thought they did play better when Barry Lunny took over. So, but that's not the case with what happened at Florida.
Yeah, you know, Sam Pittman actually said today at his press conference that he was, happy with how Barry Odom handled everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
That play
it's just
basically.
that I think they needed the head coach.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. Yeah. All right. Our next question comes from Pig's Feet, who says, I found an article about some of the women's track and field cross-country signing. Where can I find an article with more complete information about the women's team and the men's track and field and cross-country signings?
Well, I would go to the ArkansasRazorbacks.com, which is the university website, and they've got a story in there. I went and looked it up, and it's on these signees. If there's not enough information on those girls, because there's 4 of them, you can just take their names and Google search them, and you'll learn all you need to know about those 4 athletes. But that's what I would do. There's probably other ways to do that.
We usually post all those stories, too, on our website, but sometimes we miss a few.
But again, I've always encouraged people to do their own research these days.
Check it out. All right, our next question comes from Austin Hogg fan, who wants to know, so with 3 weeks for LSU to prepare and heal for us, do they come out rusty or come out explosive and force a lot of adjustments?
Well, I do worry about the 3 weeks to heal up because teams get beat up during the course of the season, and you got 3 weeks. You ought to have just about everybody healthy that's available that's not out for the season. So I don't like the sound of that. I also don't like, and Ed Ogeron said when they announced that the Alabama game 2 weeks ago had been canceled, he said we'd already started to work because they knew they had COVID issues.
Yeah.
We've already started to work against Arkansas, and I don't think they ever shut down. They just didn't play. So they've been practicing the whole time. Virtually that whole, 2 weeks before, up until now, and then the rest of this week, they're going to be practicing against Arkansas. So they ought to know every tendency, everything they're going to do. I don't like this very much, but I can't say how much. The one thing that might be negative, well, there are two things. You could be rusty.
You could, yeah.
And I think also LSU's players might have just dropped back and punted.
Yeah.
This may be part of the reason they continue to have COVID issues, because when you were on a national championship team last year, you know where they sit right now? Sixth in the SEC West. Woo. They're one from the bottom. They went from national championship to one from the bottom in their own division. So maybe those guys are going, let's drop back and get this season over with.
And that's a very real possibility, too.
I don't think they'll do that, but maybe they will.
All right, our next question comes from Twinkie275, who says, I went to the game. They announced that UPS would let everyone who attended the game have one package shipped for free, good for the next 48 hours. If the Hogs get over 50 yards in penalties, does Arkansas do this?
I've talked to you about that. You were at the
I don't
game.
remember that at the game.
You were down on you were in the press box, so you weren't down on the field like you normally are. But I don't know. I'm not saying that didn't happen. Clearly, I wasn't there, so I wouldn't know. It sounds completely nuts.
Yeah. Well, also they had more than 50 yards in penalties too.
Well,
for sure.
I know. So a lot of people should have gotten
get
free
UPS shipping.
I have to believe that if the SEC knew about that, they would step in and say, this is an inappropriate promotion. Right. And as for Arkansas, I haven't asked, but I can't believe they would ever do anything like that. It just sounds really goofy to me.
Yeah. All right. Lanny wants to know, Mike, will Traylon Smith move past Rakeem Boyd as the starter at running back?
We've checked the depth chart, and it's the depth chart sent to us on the game notes for the LSU game. And there's no change there.
Nope.
Rakeem Boyd is still listed as the starter. Traylon Smith is the backup. And so I assume that's correct. Let me tell you why I don't think they would make a change. First of all, Sam Pittman, when he got this job, Rakeem Boyd's the first guy he targeted. He said, we need you to come back.
Absolutely.
And he could have come out, and he came back on faith. And it may end up costing him a little bit because he has not had the 1,000-yard season that he hoped to have. And so it could hurt his draft stock. So I don't think he's going to punish a guy like that by saying, hey, we'll let you play, but you're not the starter anymore. Both those guys share playing time. They need both of them. And I just think, knowing Sam Pittman the way I do, I don't think he'd make the change. And it looks like from the depth chart we got, they didn't make a change. Yeah,
and that's the thing, like you mentioned, they need both of them. They're both very different style running backs, and they both play a decent amount in every single game. Blood Red Hog wants to know, why doesn't Bryles go into every game with specific plays to guarantee Traylon Burks gets at least 10 touches a game? The slant pass was there all night. Burks is too dynamic to underutilize.
Well, it's interesting because he didn't see this question, but Sam Pittman addressed it. He was asked it in the press conference or the Zoom that he had about 2 hours ago. And he mentioned the 10 touches. He said he needs to get at least 10 touches a game.
Yeah.
But then he said something I wasn't prepared for. And I wasn't aware of this. I don't know if you were or not. But he said he needs to do a better job in practice.
Yeah.
So clearly there's some kind of an issue there where Kendall Bryles is trying to motivate him a little bit and going, come on, bub, you're good, but we need more out of you during the week. And I don't know if this is a Matt Jones situation. I can tell you what happened with Matt Jones. Houston Nutt tried that strategy with him, and it just doesn't work with him. He's too good not to play, not to start at quarterback.
Exactly, yeah.
But you couldn't judge anything by what he did in practice. I used to see him stand around. He'd take a football and just act like it was a soccer ball and kick it around at practice.
Just wasn't really.
Matt Jones wasn't exactly motivated in practice, but you put him on a football field and he would light it up. So I don't think you can do too much of that with Traylon Burks. Oh, yeah, you didn't practice well.
He's too good to not have out there right now.
So I hope they're not doing that.
Dr. Strange Pork
Okay.
has the question for us and wants to know. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Okay, go
loss
ahead.
to Florida. Was there more positive takeaways than negatives from that game?
Yeah, I would think so. I don't see a lot of grumbling on social media. This was clearly the worst beating they took all year. I mean, they really got pounded.
Yeah.
But it's the best team they played, in my opinion. And yes, A&M beat Florida, but I don't think they would right now. And
Right.
they certainly wouldn't
Yeah.
do it on a neutral field. And I'm not so sure after watching not just that game, but Florida for a few weeks now, that they won't end up beating, because I think they're the ones that are going to play Alabama, not
Yeah.
Georgia. And I'm not so sure they won't end up beating Alabama. They're just awfully good. Their defense is a little suspect, but their offense is just hard to stop. I think people recognize that. I think you throw in the fact that you didn't have your head coach there. I like the fact, again, the way they kept coming back. You know, they were down by 3 touchdowns at the half, and then all of a sudden they came back right out of the
Yeah.
break and scored a touchdown to get it back to 2. Every time it was happening at about a 2-1 touchdown break, but
Yeah.
at least they didn't fail to get a touchdown after 2-1. In other
Yeah.
words, every time they got down 3, they sort of came back and got it to 2. And even at the end, you know, the Catalan interception, then
Yeah.
KJ Jefferson's in the game, and he runs it in, so you score late and get over 30 points, get 35 points. I like the way they just didn't just lay down and quit.
Right.
And I think you would know, we would all know if the fans were upset with that. And I
Yeah.
don't think they were. I don't think it's derailed any of the attitudes about this team. That's just a game that should have never been on the schedule in the first place. We've been through all that. The SEC just hammered Arkansas with their schedule. And they already had a tough schedule, and then you throw Florida into that thing, give me a break.
Yeah. And, you know, it's one of those situations where Florida certainly wasn't stepping off the gas either. So it was
No,
good to
exactly
see Arkansas
right. And Dan,
keep
I've heard
going.
a lot about that from people today. Dan Mullen was just like, oh, let's score as many points
right,
as we can.
let's
Let's
just
keep
run it
throwing the
up.
ball there at the end. And when at that point, Arkansas's defense in the fourth quarter was worn out.
Yeah, exactly. All right, our next question comes from Arkansas Redneck, who says, I saw Davion Warren get carried off the field against Florida. There were some tweets asking for prayers for him. Can you give us an update on that one?
Yeah, Sam Pittman addressed that too. He's out for the season. It was an ACL injury, and that's bad, and they
Yeah.
need him. I mean, he's one of those receivers not named Traylon Burks that keeps stepping up, and
Yeah.
they need him to do that, and he's a big play guy. I just assume everybody gets to come back. I assume he's going to come back next
Yeah,
year.
you would
We don't
think
know
so.
that, but this is by far the best year he's had, and they believe in him, and he's fit into this offense really well. So hopefully he'll be back next
Yeah.
year. Somebody else is going to have to step up here, and
Yeah.
I keep mentioning Trey Knox.
Yeah, where is
Sam
he
Pittman.
at?
Sam Pittman mentioned Trey Knox today. He's got to get going.
Yep.
Because they got to have somebody to take Warren's place.
Yeah, actually, Trey Knox tweeted out a bit earlier today, time to step up. So
Yep.
we are waiting. All right, our next
Step it up.
question comes from C. Selby72, who asks, who gets back to the Final Four first in basketball, Arkansas women's or Arkansas men?
Well, first of all, wouldn't it be good if they both went?
Right?
Because
That would-
both programs are on the rise.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one first, I'd still go with. I'd probably still go with women's basketball, simply because Mike Neighbors has a head start.
Yeah, he's got a transfer in there this year.
Yeah.
That's a big
I mean,
time
he's been
player.
working on it a little bit longer
Yeah.
than Musselman, but Musselman will get there too, and maybe they both get there. Who knows?
That'd be
That'd
great.
be great. Terrific.
Hopefully, by the time that happens, more fans can actually show up to games to watch them play at some point. Pork Soda is back with another question, of course. After seeing the red-white game, what are your thoughts on who the starting 5 might be?
Okay, I'm going to have to look down at my notes because I
Yeah.
can't memorize all
No,
this
you're
stuff.
good.
But I went over and picked the starting 5 just based on what I saw, and I'm going to assume there's a 3-guard lineup because that's what he's done. Most of Eric Musselman has done. So at 1 guard, I'm going to go with Moses Moody. That's a no-brainer. He's
Yep.
a super-duper freshman. Scored 21 points in that red-white game with 4 boards, perfect from the free throw line, and shot 50% from the floor. Man, this kid can shoot. Then there's JT Note. He scored 30 points in the game.
Jeez.
He was knocking down 3-pointers like he was at the free throw line, so he's impressive. And I like Desi Sills. He's the one returning starter on this team. He scored 24 points in the game. Kind of surprised me. So
Yeah.
I go with those 3 guards. The 2 forwards, Justin Smith. He had 24 points, 3 boards, and 6 assists. And then Jalen Williams, the freshman, the 6'10 freshman, he only scored, 4 points, but he had 7 rebounds in the game, and I think he'll come along. So I'd go, that would be my starting lineup. But here's the thing. Unlike last year when you're playing maybe 7 guys, 8 at the most, I think Musselman's got some decisions to make. I mean, you might have 9, 10, 11 guys on that team that can play. So he's going to have the opposite kind of team this year, a team with a lot of depth that you can keep running guys in and out and win basketball games. And again, the exciting thing is we're just a few days away. Wednesday it starts.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have when you can't decide on who you want your starters to be.
Right.
Our next question is from Twinkie275, who wants to know, with limited seating at basketball now confirmed, any word on fan cutouts at Bud Walton Arena, especially would like to get another VIP one signed by Coach Eric Musselman. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, you go to, again, to ArkansasRazorbacks.com. That's the university website. On the main page, there's a, what does it say? I've looked, okay, there's a little icon down to the side to the left that says most popular.
Oh,
and if you go down there, there's a one that says BWA cutouts, Bud Walton Arena cutouts. You click on that, and it gives you all the information on how you can do this. Basically, you're going to have to give them your credit card. It's $50 a cutout for regular seating to put it in the regular seating section. If you want it in a VIP seating, it's $100. But you give them your credit card, you upload your photo. Now, the photo can't have any commercial messages on it, like Joe Blow's Pizza. You can't do that on the guy's shirt or whatever. And it's got to be appropriate. You can't have some girl in bikini on, you know, on your photo.
Understandable,
So that kind of stuff. And then what they will do is, as soon as they get your cutout made, they will send you a photo of your cutout, which you can keep during the season. Then when the season's over, they'll notify you how you pick your cutout up, how you can come by and get it. The deadline on getting this done is Thursday.
Woo.
So you need to get on the stick if you want one of those cutouts in Bud Walton Arena.
Do you want one?
Well, yeah, but I'm not paying $50.
Maybe we can expense it with our station.
One to stick in the on press, you know, press
in the
area.
press area.
They used to call it press row. It's not a press row anymore. It's like press in the corner.
Yeah, it'll work though.
Press up in the dark somewhere.
It is actually in the dark.
It'd be nice to have cutouts and you just stick them in there even though you're not there.
That'd be kind of fun. By the way, there's a lot of dog cutouts at the football games and stuff. They're all great. It's good fun.
They are. It's fun.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Ask Mike. For Mike Irwin, I'm Tara Talmadge. Guys, we'll see you here next week.